Welcome, my friends, to another YouTube version of the BJJ Break podcast. I hope you enjoy the show, and if you do, please subscribe to the channel. So here we go.
Thank you for listening to the BJJ Break podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to the BJJ Break podcast. This is episode 160. My name is Byron. I'm here with my good buddy Gary. We're talking all things jiu-jitsu. Gary, how's it going, my friend?
You know, it's going great, especially when we're talking all things jiu-jitsu. We got a great show planned today, and I'm ready to get rolling.
Yep, we have an interview with Hope Uzcategui. We interviewed her husband a while back and learned about how she's accomplished so much in jiu-jitsu, and definitely I sent her some messages kind of getting her to do an interview. So really excited to bring Hope to the listening audience here. So that'll be coming up shortly.
Yep, and then one of our guests we've had on a couple times, John Will. We have an article and a quote from him, so a little double dose of John Will and then Hope on this show. So we've got an incredible show planned for today.
Absolutely, Gary. Every time that we are in need of an article, I always should look at John Will's website because he has amazing things. And sometimes people send us articles, which is great. You know, if you have a quote you want us to talk about, send it to bjjbreak@gmail.com, or an article. Maybe you have a blog about jiu-jitsu or something that's, kind of relative to jiu-jitsu. Send it to us, and we'll be happy to share it with everybody and talk about it. Or if you just have a website you like to read and think we should be informed of that, that'd be cool too. But we didn't have any this week, so I ended up going to John Will's website, and is full of gold, man. So I was like, oh, here's a quote, and here's our article, and they're both great quotes, and it's a great quote and a great article, and he writes kind of short articles and just gets to the point, and looking forward to that. He's one of our more popular guests we've had on the show. We had him on episode 107 and 107 and 127. So looking to get him back on before too long as well.
Yeah, the crazy thing is, I never thought that the hardest part about doing this podcast would be to find a quote in an interview or a quote and an article every week. So I thought that would be an easy part. But boy, just searching for articles. And like you said, sometimes we forget about the gold mines, and we have to remember that. Anytime nobody sent us one in, we know where to go.
Absolutely.
Yep. Hey, speaking of knowing where to go, definitely check out the show notes and check out Byron's audiobook. It's called Your First Year in BJJ. It's only $11.99 for 2.5 hours of content. And is Byron guiding you through your first year of jiu-jitsu? And that's where all the trials and tribulations, the pitfalls happen. Our goal is to keep people rolling for a long time. We want everybody to train jiu-jitsu. And the hardest part is that first year. There's a big dropout rate in that first year. And we're hoping to help change the dropout rate to a retention rate, I guess we'd call it there. And this book definitely helps out. It's got everything from how to pick your first school to what to expect at a practice to how to get ready for competition. So like I said, it's only $11.99. Tons of content, 2.5 hours. Got some great reviews. So definitely check it on out. And the money from the audiobook goes to support this show.
The best thing about the audiobook, Gary, is it's an audiobook. You don't have to look at me. You just listen to like you're just doing right now.
I think I'd rather look at you.
Oh, Gary. That's ridiculous.
You're easy on the eyes.
Oh, man. Well, if that's the case, go to our YouTube channel where we have the BJJ Break Q&A where I'll answer questions and try to break them down for you and help out. But it seems like every now and then we get questions and they kind of get repeated. And I figured I'll answer them on video, and that way people will be able to check them out there. So that's kind of how that started, and it's going pretty good. Gary, you mentioned the show notes about checking out the audiobook. There's a link in your show notes from there. You can go to the website, bjjbreak.com, or check your email box in the inbox, or maybe in the junk folder. I don't know where it ends up.
Probably the junk folder.
But we send out an email every week with all the show notes, all the links to, it'll have links to Hope's website or, where she's training at. It'll have, basically everything that we talk about on the show, article, quote, all that sort of stuff, Patreon stuff. And it'll be in your email box. If you want to be on that list, go to our website or go to our Facebook page, type in your name and email, and that's pretty simple. And we'll send you a confirmation email shortly. So that is our email list. Gary, I just mentioned our Patreon thing. What is that, you might ask? Well,
what is Patreon, Byron?
Well, I'll answer that. Thanks for the question there, Gary. Patreon is a website that is dedicated towards helping content producers like podcasters or artists or people who make videos or vlogs or whatever. Musicians is another one. And we signed up, and we have a Patreon account there where if you want to go and support us per episode, you could pledge a certain amount of money, and there's different rewards at different amounts of money. But we have a new pledge amount because we really, to be honest, Gary, we weren't getting a whole lot of action on our Patreon account.
I never get a lot of action, Byron.
Yeah. I can't testify to that, Gary, but on our Patreon account, it was a little bit, I mean, we have our four original, Alexander, Greggy, Sean, and Rob, our four original Patreons, and we're looking to get some more, and I think maybe just the price is too high, so we've lowered it. You can now start supporting the BJJ Brick podcast at 50 cents an episode. And after you support us for 15 episodes at 50 cents, we're going to go ahead and mail you out a BJJ Brick key patch, and we are mailing those internationally. So check that out. It's a way you could kind of give us a pat on the back, probably about $2 a month. And how it works is you don't get billed 50 cents every time, every week. Your credit card or whatever you use, PayPal, will get billed once a month per the total of how many episodes we have. You can put a cap on that at 4 if you'd like. So that's basically how Patreon works, and we're trying out our new 50 cent per episode level to see if that kind of helps out a little bit. We're looking to see more people supporting the show and helping us grow.
Yep. So, hey, we appreciate all the support you guys can give us. Thank you very much. Hey, I'd also like to talk about if you can get us in a submission for the Coach of the Year. We're doing a new thing this year we want our listeners to nominate their coach. And basically, doesn't have to be a coach who won a world championship, won the Pan Ams. We just want you to nominate somebody who has really helped you through rough times, who has taught you, and who has been a role model to you. Which is a definition of a coach right there. Guide and be a role model. And what we're going to do at the end of the year, we're going to hopefully have a bunch of submissions. So far, we've only got a couple. The more, the better. And what we're going to do is have a little panel, and me and Byron will probably be two of them, but we'll get a couple other guys, and we will pick for the Coach of the Year. And hopefully we can even get the Coach of the Year on the show. We can't guarantee that. Some people don't want to be on the show, but it's a good way to show some respect and give back to somebody who has given so much to you, has helped you out and guided you down the jiu-jitsu trail. And and also too, we'll put it in the show. We'll put a link to the school if you guys do have a website or whatever. So it'll get a little publicity to the school too, which can never hurt. And on top of that, that person will be the first ever BJJ Brick Coach of the Year. I don't know how prestigious of a title it is, but we like to think it's pretty cool.
Well, statistically, there will be only one person in the entire world that has that title when that happens.
Yeah, yep, and that's that's pretty impressive.
That is pretty impressive. But who knows? I think it's just a fun way to honor somebody, and you could do that to your coach. Just by getting on the keyboard, send us an email, and type up a well-written little essay about why your coach is so great.
Yep, I tried to nominate Byron. And every time I sent the email to bjjbrick@gmail.com, it kept getting returned. I'm not sure why, but I'm going to try to nominate him again.
Well, I appreciate that, Gary. We did mention before that the coaches here where we're from in Wichita, Kansas, will probably not be allowed to enter just because we have quite a few listeners here locally, and it'd be hard to vote on that. So we'll just keep us out of that.
Well, that's why I changed the address to Kentucky.
There you go. Gary, you're always thinking ahead. You're a smooth criminal.
Yeah.
And I appreciate your efforts on that, Gary. It means a lot to me, buddy. Just like I would to anybody else's coach.
Yeah, see, that's how much it means. But Byron, I think we should get on to a quote of the week from Mr. John Will. Trying to model expert behavior without walking in the expert's footsteps almost certainly guarantees a poor result. Have you ever tried that, Byron?
I think we all have, Gary. I think that's a common
We definitely have.
mistake. You type in on YouTube and you see these two amazing athletes, and it could be in anything. This doesn't need to be just jiu-jitsu. And you see what they're doing. It's like, wow, that is great. I could just do that, and I'll be good to go. So I'm going to study that particular aspect in depth and ignore what got them to be that way and just try to do that right now. It's trying to learn how to maybe seeing like somebody run an amazing marathon, at the Olympics or something like that. Like, that's what I want to do. And you go out and try to run a marathon. That's not going to work. Especially
for you, Byron.
Especially, especially if you're still at the part where you're trying to learn how to crawl. Like you learn to crawl first, and you learn to stand, and you learn to walk a little bit, and you fall, and you could run a little while, then you could run a mile, and you have to build up. And what you don't see when you look at somebody who's doing amazing, feats athletically or musically or whatever, is there's a lot of history in that person that is just kind of hidden, and you have to look at where they came from, look at what they did when they were in your shoes or in your gi, and do that, and don't just do what they're doing now.
I remember when I was younger, before jiu-jitsu, I was really into weightlifting, and for some reason I wanted to be a bodybuilder. I thought that was it at that time, which, hey, bodybuilding's awesome. But so I'd go to the store and I'd buy a Muscle and Fitness magazine, and I would follow the exact workout for Mr. Olympia or whoever. And, I just couldn't understand why, a month later, I didn't have great results. Here I am, a little skinny kid, hasn't been working out very long, but thought I could do, the workload that these guys are doing, do everything, step by step that they do. They'd post their whole workout, and I would follow it, but nothing would work. Like Byron said, it's baby steps. I have to, get everything right. The eating, the resting, the working out, but I only did one thing, and I way overloaded on it and got no results whatsoever.
Gary, maybe for your 140-pound frame, doing the same workout as somebody who weighs, 280 pounds and is pure muscle is a bad idea. Maybe if you could have gone back and see what that person was doing when they were your size, that would have been a better game plan to get their results versus just go in there and do that.
So true, Byron. That's so true. I wish I would have known that without wasting all that time. But like you said, even jiu-jitsu related,
Absolutely.
We see it happen all the time. It seems like the person who just starts knows all about the sport and has watched Gordon Ryan and everybody and trying to do those moves. And what we really need to work on is baby steps. Let's we have to crawl before we can walk, before we can run, before we can jump.
Yeah. A lot of times coaches are telling you, hey, work on this technique for a reason. That is the learning how to crawl. That is learning how to walk. And you're trying to just get out there and run full steam ahead. And that takes a lot of time on the mat before you're ready to run on the mat, I guess, Gary, as bad as that analogy is. Well,
yeah, when I'm going against Byron, I'm always running on the mat because I'm running away from him because I don't want to get submitted.
That has not happened. Gary, from John Will's quote to John Will's article, and actually that quote,
what a segue.
Yeah, that quote has a little article written about it as well, and we'll put a link to that. That if you click on the quote in your show notes, which are in your email box, because we already talked about that, Gary. But the article is called Leverage. That's it. That's the title, Leverage, and it is an interesting kind of a story of how his concept of leverage has changed over time. Gary, what did you pick up on this article?
Well, before we go about the article, we just talked about, experts and following in their footsteps. And, John Will's an expert. He's, a pioneer, one of the best ever, been around a long time, knows a ton more than I do. And I'm trying to follow in his footsteps. And, I just realized I follow a lot more in his footsteps when I see John Will blog, 5th degree BJJ black belt, nowhere close, MMA coach, author. But here we go. I can follow him on this one. Licorice lover. I never realized John Will liked licorice. I like licorice, so I am following his footsteps one way, I guess.
There you go, Gary. What kind of licorice?
I'm the red licorice, whatever it is, strawberry, I guess it is.
Okay.
Or,
So not the
cherry,
not the
maybe.
true licorice flavored black licorice that.
No, not me.
Okay.
Yeah, but if that's what John Will uses, or the kind he likes, I will follow in the footsteps.
Well, maybe when he was your similar skill level in jiu-jitsu, he liked red, and you're doing it just
Yeah.
right now, Gary.
Hey, thanks for looking out for me.
But it's fun. The article takes him through, like, when I first thought about leverage, it was just a word. It didn't really mean much to me. And then, I thought about a guy standing and then a long stick and him trying to move the world with that stick because he has leverage. And, yeah, that is kind of what definition of leverage is. But it doesn't really help you in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I think back at the time when, I was in geometry in school and we'd talk about fulcrums and levers and stuff. And to be honest, I could care less. It made really not much sense to me. I didn't really see myself moving boulders. I wish at that point I was into jiu-jitsu. It would make so much more sense. Like right now, I almost wish I could go back and take those classes. Just because I think I would understand it a lot more. I think sometimes if teachers, found out what you really, what your hobbies were and could relate it to it. And I know the bad part about that is it wouldn't help everybody. I mean, because how many people really are into jiu-jitsu and know it. But, that's it just brought me back to the time where I knew nothing about levers and I would learn about it and it didn't make sense. And then I started jiu-jitsu and I had to hear people talk about levers and fulcrum and it still didn't make sense. It's kind of like what John was saying until, he came, he'd been training a little bit longer and then it all started to fall into place.
If you think about a lever, it's just basically a large stick with a fulcrum, and it helps you move things. And can we find these on the mat? Can we find ways to use a lever in jiu-jitsu? Not just leverage, but an actual lever. Gary, what do you think about that? Do you know of any levers?
Well, here we talk about it in the article. You're humorous. And
well, thank you, Gary. I try to be funny, but I fail a lot of times.
I think you set me up for that one now that coming to. But, I thought it was kind of neat where he said it dawned on him that the art of applying leverage was about achieving a lot with a little, about moving a larger object with a smaller object through some arcane use of thing called levers, which is you're humorous. And you just realize as you start training, just different ways you grab that lever, different places you have your fulcrum, which could be your groin as you're applying an arm bar, different angles you're going. And, just like even an arm bar, you've got your lever, you got your fulcrum, and you may change the angle to break the grip. And it's kind of crazy how, if you look at really every position, you can, put this in there. It's, it's basic stuff, but it's hard to understand. It takes a while to really understand it. Yeah.
He basically is calling the bones in your body or your opponent's body, they're levers to be pulled and worked on. They're solid, and you could manipulate their body with these. And an easy example, I think, for me to explain is when I have side control, I'm on top, and somebody, the person on the bottom is trying to escape, and they generally have two options. They could turn towards me, or they could turn away from me and try to turtle. When they're turning away from me and they're going to try to turtle or to kind of turn around on me, I could grab their arm and their far arm and pull it towards me, and that will make it very difficult for them to turn away from me. It'll make it hard to switch over their hips. But if I grab their arm, like almost at the shoulder, but it connects to their body, I have almost no leverage. They could turn right through that. But if I go all the way up to their elbow, secure that, and pull that towards me, they can't turn into that. It is just too much pressure on their shoulder, and they're not able to turn their hips over and get up to the turtle position. So that's one simple way of kind of explaining that. Not just that the humerus, the bone, the long bone in your arm between your elbow and your shoulder is a lever, but it's where you apply the leverage, where you apply the force to the lever at the end of it. That is important. So looking at the legs, those are long levers, and if you could push on them and manipulate, where you're going to push at them, that's a big deal. It's pushing in the middle of the leg is not as effective as pushing up towards the knee. You got a lot more leverage up there.
Yeah. Well, I remember back in the days when, I first learned to do an arm bar. I'd have an arm bar on, and the guy would clasp his hands together, and I would, be pulling in the middle of his elbow, and I'd just be pulling and pulling with all my might. And, I couldn't break the grip. Sooner or later, the guy's inside elbow region would get sore and probably bruised, and he'd finally let go because all the pressure being put there, and I might finish an arm bar. But, and it's funny, then one day somebody's like telling me, and he's like, hey, if you just start pulling, up by the wrist, it's a lot easier to break that. You can have a lot more force, and just stuff like that I never really understood. I just would grab something and push and pull with all my might and try to break it. And, you become a lot more efficient and effective when you do figure out levers and fulcrums and angles. Definitely helps you out.
Yeah, that's a big deal. And in the article, he continues on talking about off the mat, using leverage off the mat in relationships, finances, fishing, wherever. There's ways to get a big result with minimal effort. That's what a lever is going to get you.
That's the key. Yep.
Gary, can you just on the spot here think of a spot where you've been able to use leverage off the mat?
Yeah, at work. Let's say, I need to get more done. I've got a ton of stuff on my plate and I need to get it done. And, it's, let's say, 12 hours worth of work. And before, I used to just always say I'd outwork everybody. I can be the last one to stay here. I'll be here to 8 o'clock at night. I'll prove you guys that, I'm the hardest worker in here. And as I've got older in my career, I realized putting in amount of hours doesn't mean I'm the hardest worker. It probably means I'm not the smartest worker. As I've, got older, I've learned to, use technology better, which is going to give me maximum results and, maximum efficiency and just stuff to make my life easier. And, even as much as delegating stuff instead of doing it all yourself. And that has definitely helped me off the mat in my job.
There you go. Lots of different leverage, and if you could find it in your life, pull that lever and get things done a little easier. And I think technology is a good one to look at, Gary. That's an amazing thing that has changed a lot.
Yeah, and the good thing about that, less time at work means more time training jiu-jitsu, and that's what we're here for.
Yep. There we go. Get more time on the mat, Gary.
Yep. Speaking of more time on the mat, I think it's time for our interview.
He is the most interesting grappler in the world.
He taught Tyler Durden how to make soap just because they had extra supplies. He once got a mat burn. It ended up causing a 3-alarm fire. When he pulls guard, the ref gives him 2 points. If you watch his competition footage, you will see Mr. Miyagi looking at him with approval.
I don't always listen to podcasts, but when I do, I prefer the BJJ Brick podcast. Stay listening, my friends.
All right, my friends, I'm happy to bring Hope Uzcategui to the BJJ Brick podcast. Hope, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Byron, for having me today.
Thanks for being on here with me today. I'm excited to get to know you a little bit better and to learn from you today. So I guess kind of if you can kick us off here, you've got a pretty impressive competition background, but can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm 27 years old, and me and my husband run a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Academy here in Wilmington, North Carolina. And I'm also one of the instructors, the Jiu-Jitsu instructors. I teach the boxing, the Muay Thai. I help out with the kids' Jiu-Jitsu classes, and I have a women's conditioning and fitness class that I also teach.
You sound pretty busy, and you've also competed quite a bit winning 2 IBJJF World Championships, one in 2011, one in 2014. Is that correct?
That is correct. White belt and purple belt.
All right. What do you have anything to talk about those experiences maybe as a purple belt winning the World Championship?
I think the hardest one was purple belt. I can say the competition was really fierce. I had 4 matches, and they were all really, really tough opponents. So that was probably one of my toughest matches I've ever had together.
What was it about those matches that made them difficult?
It was a hard training camp beforehand, and then getting to California and cutting weight and then competing. There were just some really, really tough girls. So that was probably probably one of my personal best accomplishments that I can say that I'm really proud of, because I had such tough opponents and I came out on top after 4 really hard matches.
Yeah, that is awesome. And you're currently a brown belt, is that correct?
Yes, I am.
And are you doing teaching mostly or coaching, or are you looking to compete more, or what is your focus in jiu-jitsu now?
Right now, I'm just teaching. After I received my brown belt last April, I decided to focus more on our business. So I'm kind of behind the scenes, doing paperwork, taking care of everyone, and also teaching more too. So I haven't been able to compete at brown belt yet, but I'm hopefully going to start, working towards competing again really soon. I want to compete at brown belt level and, see how it's different from all the other competitions that I did at the lower belts.
Yeah, well, I'm sure as a purple belt world champion, getting mixed up there with the brown belts, you're going to do just fine. And plus the added experience and time you have on the mat, it will help out as well. What got you started in jiu-jitsu?
I started jiu-jitsu because of MMA. And 2010 is when I started, January 2010. And I actually started because I wanted to get into cage fighting. And I found a local gym, and I started training there. And I didn't even know what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was to begin with. I just wanted to go and fight. So I went to the gym, and that's where I met Jonathan. He was my first coach. And what he told me was, to compete in MMA, you need to learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as your staple. And so I was like, well, I don't even know what that is. That's okay. I'll teach you jiu-jitsu, and then you'll learn your boxing and your Muay Thai separately. Then we'll work on your wrestling. And so that's where I really first began learning jiu-jitsu. And I absolutely fell in love with the sport. I think I liked it better than the Muay Thai, better than the boxing, especially better than the wrestling. It's a little bit easier on the knees. So that's where I first started out. And I had one MMA fight 2 years after I started. And it wasn't what I really thought it was going to be. I didn't enjoy it at all. It was a very self-centered sport, whereas Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is more about, your friends, the camaraderie, the family, really. And I missed that getting ready for my MMA fight. And so after the fight, I just decided that I wanted just to compete in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I started there and stuck with it.
Well, that's an interesting story and an interesting way to come to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. What were you doing first? Were you doing the striking arts before you started Jiu-Jitsu, or you just saw MMA and wanted to do it?
I just saw MMA. I was watching, I think, Bellator, but I saw it on TV, and I was like, I want to start fighting, which most people do. And I didn't have any boxing background other than just watching it with my dad late at night. I didn't have any martial arts background or anything. And so I pretty much started it all together. And I will say that I did do more jiu-jitsu than boxing or Muay Thai, just because the gym that I went to offered more jiu-jitsu classes. And so I was training more in jiu-jitsu. So that's probably why, I enjoyed it more than the boxing. And of course, getting punched in the face isn't that much fun either. So yeah. I enjoyed the grappling and submissions better.
Yeah, I can imagine that getting hit in the face is not a fun experience. And the people who like the striking arts, that's good. That's amazing. I'd rather be getting choked. I don't know why.
I would too. I would have to agree with you on that one.
So Hope, you're a pretty busy person. What do you do when you're not doing jiu-jitsu related things?
When I'm not in the gym, I swim. I started swimming a lot, and I'm usually meal prepping. So you can either find me at the local pool or in my kitchen, because I spend a lot of time between the grill and the kitchen doing the meal preps for me and my husband.
Okay, I'm interested in this, the meal prepping concept. Do you make meals for like the whole week, or how do you?
We try to. It usually doesn't last the whole week, but we'll go out and we'll buy about 40 pounds of chicken. We'll buy steak, fish, and then we'll do, all the veggies, and cook everything. Pretty much, we try to do it on Sundays, and then see how many containers we can fill. Sometimes we make it through the week. Sometimes we don't. Between the two of us, we're eating about 6 meals a day.
Wow.
Plus snacks. So it's a lot of food. And, they're small portions.
Yeah.
You portion them out. So sometimes we have to end up cooking, twice during the week.
So you make a whole bunch of food and you refrigerate it in single serving size containers to where you can just get that out and heat that up?
Yes, especially with our busy schedule. We're only home for a couple hours in the afternoon before we have to go back to the gym and teach or clean, that sort of thing. So the less time cooking during the week we can spend is better, because we can just come home, grab our little container, throw it in the microwave, heat it up, eat it, and then just rest until we have to go back.
I think that would help me with portion control, because I do suffer from always wanting more. And if you have already figured out how much you're going to eat, then there you go.
Oh, yes, definitely. We weigh everything out, measure it. So you always have your perfect portion. So you're not overeating or undereating, especially if you're training a lot. You need to make sure you know how much you're eating so you can perform better.
Yeah. I think that's an area where sometimes I'll notice that, a more serious athlete will spend a day and prepare their meals for, try to do the whole week ahead of time. That way they have a lot more control over the diet. They avoid the situations where they're, headed home, it's late, they have no food in the fridge, and they have to go grab something on the way, a fast food item. It really it's a smart way to prepare your week for healthy eating.
It really is. I really enjoy it. It is very, very time consuming, but I really enjoy, cooking and experimenting with the different meals. And then especially if you're having to cut weight, this is the way I have to do it. And then just to feel better when you're rolling, because when you're training really hard and you're rolling maybe once or twice a day, if you're going and training once or twice a day, you will perform how you eat. So if you eat a bunch of junk or you grab junk food on the way home or fast food, then you're going to feel like crap the next day when you go try to roll. So it's a lot easier when you, feed yourself with good food and good portions.
Yeah. You also mentioned that you like to swim. I think these are all really good basic skills that everyone should know how to cook a meal and to make something, basic cooking. Everyone should know basic self-defense. Everyone should know if you end up in water, how to swim and be safe. But you're obviously swimming at a higher level than that. How does swimming affect your time on the mats?
It affects it in a better way. I would say that since I started swimming, I have better lung capacity, which that's what swimming is supposed to do. So I don't get fatigued as easier. And also it's a stress relief for me. Jiu-jitsu sometimes, especially since I'm training twice a day, sometimes it can be very frustrating, especially if I'm trying, learning new moves. I'm fatigued. The simple stuff that I should be getting isn't coming as easily. So that's kind of like my time just to almost like meditation for me. I go swim. I can just let everything go, just relax and really think about, what I've been doing wrong, maybe how the session went. So for me, it's more, I guess, mental than it is physical. It's kind of like my stress reliever, but it does help a lot. I've noticed on the mats rolling, I don't fatigue as easier. So it has helped in that aspect.
Yeah. I always want to get like into swimming and especially for me, because if I do a lap or two, I'm doing okay. I'm sure I'm not a very fast swimmer, but for myself, I'm doing okay with a lap or two in. But after that, I start to fatigue a little bit, and then breathing becomes more of a chore. You can't just breathe, when you want to. You have to time it, and then I'll struggle with that. My legs get tired, and then I'll compensate with my arms. My arms get tired, and it kind of reminds me of when I started jiu-jitsu, like that struggle with trying to be able to breathe and try not to freak out and being relaxed and just go and stay relaxed is a big deal.
Exactly, and I do compare it a lot to jiu-jitsu because, like anything, when you first start out, and especially if you're new to the sport and you don't know what to expect, you are going to get fatigued really easily. You're going to be exerting a lot of adrenaline and a lot of strength when you really don't need to be. But the more you go, and just like swimming and jiu-jitsu, the more you go, the more you train, the better that you are going to become. And I always tell myself, especially when I go swimming, I'm not Michael Phelps. I'm not trying to be an Olympic swimmer. So, I go there with the mentality, okay, this is to better myself. This is for me. So I try to put it in perspective exactly the way you should when you train jiu-jitsu. Okay, what am I doing this for? Am I doing it to relax? Am I doing it to de-stress? Am I doing it to learn something? So go in with realistic expectations for yourself. So you're not, you don't turn something that should be enjoyable and a good learning experience into something that's, difficult, or what's the word I'm looking for? I'm sorry, I just lost the word.
Maybe something that you can't really achieve.
Exactly. Yeah, it's unachievable.
I like this idea. I'm not Michael Phelps, and I'll say this for myself, and I never could be like Michael Phelps because his feet are giant. They're like flippers, and he's just built to be a great swimmer. And then he also works very hard at it as well. But he's got both those things working for him. And then I think a lot of times in jiu-jitsu, people do the same thing. We watch these celebrities in the jiu-jitsu world, and if you can't manage your expectations when you get on the mat, you're going to be disappointed. Because I'm not Marcelo Garcia, I'm not anywhere near Andre Galvao, but I can watch them and this is cool. But if I can't dial back my own expectations, I keep disappointing myself. Would you kind of agree to that? A lot of students kind of get that idea that they're going to be, I'm not trying to dissuade anybody from training hard and to being the best they can, but to have realistic expectations for your short-term goals is a huge thing.
Oh, of course. I completely agree with you on that. I see it all the time. We have, students who come in who, they want to be the next world champion, which is a great aspiration. That's a great forethought. You should have those goals. But let's be realistic. Are you going to come in there one day and become a world champion? No, it's going to take some time. Realistically, it depends on you, your athleticism, your retention, how well you learn, how well you can put everything together. So, and you have to be true to yourself, is how I would say it. You have to be realistic with yourself and say, okay, what are my goals? What do I want to accomplish? And look at yourself and say, am I going to be able to put in those twice a day, every day to be a world champion? No? Okay, well, let's start off with, 2 or 3 times a week. And then, if I get better, then I'll start training more. My condition's going to get better. My strength's going to get better. My techniques are going to get better. And then you can start working towards, the bigger goals that you have. That's what we see. We tell all the students, start with coming in and training. And then, when you get to that point where you want to compete or you want to go, the bigger tournaments, then we'll go when we get there. But don't try to put the cart before the horse, as they say. Yeah.
Well, I hope, and you're an interesting person to talk to this about because as a white belt world champion, that basic, people think that, that's white belt world champion, but really you got really good at jiu-jitsu very quickly compared to everybody else in your category, and that's worth looking at too and investigating. Why is it that you were able to do so well early on?
I attribute it to my training. I had a really good instructor. I had a great coach, and I was in the gym pretty much all day long. I was in college at UNCW, and I really, scheduled my classes around my jiu-jitsu training, which probably wasn't the best idea, but for me, I loved it so much. And that was, one of my goals that I had when I first started, that I wanted to compete. And then I had no idea about, world championships, the IBJJF. And so once I learned about them, I was already putting in the time. So I was like, this is a goal for me. So it did take that, twice a day, every day, and then go into competition, some of the smaller competitions, the Nagas, the American or Grappler's Quest, that sort of thing, to get me up to that point where I was able to compete at that higher level.
Yeah, and I think that I'm kind of noticing a little bit of a pattern here. You mentioned that, if you want to be a world champion, that's a great goal, but it's probably not your first goal. Like one of your earlier goals was to do well at a Naga, and then once you did that a couple of times, then you're stepping up and up and getting there. So, just to sit here and hey, I want to be world champion. Well, maybe I should start competing, and I should start competing at a smaller level, and then do well there, and then bump up another time. And is that kind of what you did?
That's exactly what I did. I competed. My first competition was 2 months after I started training. So I had a pass that I was really good at. I had a sweep I was really good at, and I had one submission that I was really good at. And I would get those in the gym training every single day. So I wasn't, going and doing this one day and then going and doing that technique the next day. So I focused on just getting my foundations in jiu-jitsu. And then focused on the tournament, which was, it took me 2 months to get to that point where I felt confident to do a tournament. And then I did that tournament. And then I was like, okay, well, what's next? The next tournament. So I, took some time off, still training, but, letting your body recover and then, going towards the next goal.
Hope, I am interested in different recommended techniques for white belts. And you had a pass you were good at, a sweep you were good at, and a submission. Could you tell us what those were if you remember?
I do remember. My pass was the knee slide pass from standing open guard, and my sweep was the flower sweep from closed guard, and the submission was just a basic cross grip choke from closed guard or mount. So that's pretty much all I knew. That's all I practiced, and that's what I won with in my tournament. All the girls, I think I had 4 or 5 girls in my division when I competed at my first Naga Charlotte competition, and that's what I won with. It was all cross grip chokes, which are pretty much your basic choke. I don't think you can get much simpler than that.
And do you still have a pretty good cross grip choke today?
I've moved on to other things.
Okay.
I do. I mean, I usually I'll throw it up there, but it's usually to try to get something else.
So would you prefer to be, back when you were white belt, passing, or would you like to be in your guard or play in the guard?
I loved passing. I had a lot of knee injuries starting out, and a really freak accident where I cracked my left rib. And so I wasn't able to play on the bottom a lot. So most of the time I was hopping on one leg, bouncing around, trying to pass the guard. And so I practiced a lot of passing from the top just because I had the rib injury and then the knee injury. And so that's where I was most comfortable. It probably wasn't until I was late blue belt where I actually, started playing more open guard. If I wasn't passing as a white belt, I would jump guard, which you can't do now, which I don't like because you have to sit guard now in the IBJJF. But I would usually pull guard into close guard and then do my cross grip choke or my flower sweep.
Okay, and how important is it, if someone's trying to figure out what moves to work on at a white belt or blue belt level, how important is it that they go well together?
It's very important. You want to have a smooth transition between whatever it is that you're trying to do, but also the techniques that work best for you. So you don't want to be, just trying something because your best friend's really good at it and they like it. You need to find something that works for you, that works for your body type, that's that you enjoy, submission, sweeps, passes that you like doing and that you're good at. And then you can start branching off from there. So I didn't really have an open guard as a white belt. Most people play closed guard as white belt. So from the closed guard, there's, a couple of different sweeps that you can do. I liked the flower sweep where, you raise your hips up and you pendulum and come on top to mount. So for mount, you have the Kimuras, you have the Americanas. There's a couple of arm bars that you can set up from mount, but I liked the cross grip choke just because it kept me, in the high mount position. It was hard for the person to roll me over. And if they did roll me back over into closed guard, I still had the choke. So you do have to find techniques that go well together that you can transition through in case it doesn't work. And by it doesn't work, I mean the person defends it. So the person bucks you out of mount and you end up in closed guard, you can still finish the cross grip choke.
Yeah, that's a great example. And I'm also trying to picture you doing your pass, and maybe you're able to kind of set up your first hand inside the gi to get that choke started before you even pass, to where you're after you pass, you're already locking that up, and they're still worried about, she's basically passed, and you're you're going to pass because you've done that pass a million times, and your choke is right around the corner.
Definitely. I always focused, on getting my points first. So if I was playing on top and the person's side guard, I'd always do my knee slide pass and come into side control, get my points, go into mount, cross grip choke. So they were always, lined up, bam, bam, bam. If the person tried to turtle, and I go north-south to the other side, go back into mount, cross grip choke. So it was always focused on, those 4 simple techniques that I could put together from anywhere.
Yeah. You had a way to get back to where you wanted to be.
Exactly.
And that's important. So you didn't have to, remember 100 different ways to attack somebody in turtle position. Just put them into the position that you're familiar with and go back to your normal game plan.
That's how I think it should be, and that's how you're going to, achieve your goals and also, become better at jiu-jitsu, is putting things together that way.
You mentioned a couple things about developing that game plan, like body type and that sort of thing. You also mentioned that it's important that you enjoy the technique, and I think that's often overlooked. That if I'm just learning, this particular armbar, and it's okay, it's all right. But if I'm like really interested in that armbar, and I'm trying to figure out the real details of it, and not just have somebody show me, but I'm actually really seeking that information, I'm really fascinated by it, I'm going to get a lot better at that. So it is important to enjoy the techniques that you're trying to incorporate into your game. And I think you have that deeper level of learning.
It definitely is, because there are so many techniques out there, and not everyone is going to like the same things. And that's what makes all of us different. That's what makes all, like the high level guys and girls, that defines their games. This is what they like. I can tell you right now, there's a lot of things that I do not like. Like there's this one spider guard pass I cannot stand. Did I have to drill it about 1,000 times? Yes, I drilled it. Do I know how to get out of it if somebody puts me there? Yes, I do. But would I ever pull that in competition or if I'm training? Not a chance. I just do not like that pass at all. I despise it and I hated drilling it. But, you have to find things that you enjoy. And you also have to learn the stuff that you do not like. So you recognize it in tournaments and in drilling, in training, and be able to defend it if you need to. But you don't have to like everything. But definitely finding techniques that you do enjoy doing that work well for you, and exploiting that, because you'll be able to be the best at those techniques and get them from anywhere. No matter what you're trying no matter where you're trying to go when you're training, you're going to be able to see those techniques pop up because you've become so good at them.
Absolutely. It's the difference between somebody who could find a guillotine, in the one particular spot, where if you find that, you keep working and you develop that over the course of time, you'll see guillotines all over the place. And most techniques are that way. You could find entries into most submissions and different techniques from pretty far away, and it takes that time and that development to actually get those to really reveal themselves. Hope, it sounds like you train a lot. Do you take focused effort to get a day of rest, or how do you manage training too much?
It's not easy, and I'll say it's not the most fun thing ever, having to go in and do 2-a-days almost every single day. That's why I do the meal prepping we had talked before. So I'm not having to cook a lot in between, the afternoon time. When I'm not in the gym, I'm usually at the house, just laying down, resting. And then I do take, we take Saturday afternoons off. We take Friday afternoons off. And then sometimes Sunday afternoons. But most likely we're back in the gym, getting an extra session in, either drilling or rolling. So it isn't, it's worth it because you see the improvement. But it's not the easiest thing to do, and it's not feasible for everyone. Not everyone's going to be able to come in there and train, twice a day, because it is a commitment. It is, very hard to do, especially with people's work schedules. I'm very lucky that I own a gym and I can go there and train. I have the opportunity to train twice a day, every day. But the resting is really important, and every chance I get, I'm sitting down because I know I have to go right back in there and roll with all of our guys that are getting really good and technical, and you have to be on your A game, or else they'll jump on you. They'll jump on top of you and pass your guard, and you'll be in a submission next thing you know.
Yeah. Hope, you made kind of a transition from somebody who competed a lot to more of a coach or more of a gym ownership role. What have you learned in that process?
I learned that I love competing. Right now, I really want to compete. I miss it. I learned how to instruct better, which was great. I learned how to, catch mistakes that, I see our students making, that I see even the children to adults making, that I made myself. So when I'm watching a certain technique, I already know what to look for because I've been through what they're going through now. If they're learning, a new sweep, or they're learning a new pass, I can go and I'll start, without even thinking about it, I'm already looking, okay, is their hand right? Is their foot in the right place? Because I start seeing the mistakes that I made at their level. And so as a coach, I can, see those before they even do them, really. So I'm able to critique them better as a coach now, as opposed to, when I was competing, I was always the one being critiqued.
Kind of, you mentioned that about MMA. You like focusing less on yourself and more on the team, or it's not quite so, I have to get ready for my fight. It's more about, hey, we're getting ready for our matches or our fights.
Yes, and this might not be true for everyone. I know we have a lot of guys and girls that have transitioned from MMA into jiu-jitsu, and then jiu-jitsu into MMA. So this is just from my personal experience. I had 2 months where I got ready for my first cage match. And during those 2 months, I was being drilled in the gym. I had a boxing sparring session every day. I had a full MMA sparring every day. Then I was training jiu-jitsu and defensive boxing. And then on the weekends, I would do wrestling. So it was really intense. It was a lot of training. I had a lot of injuries. And it was really difficult. I didn't enjoy, jiu-jitsu is hard and you have your injuries, but it wasn't the same. And when it came down, to the weight cut and to the cage match itself, I just did not like the way it went. I was, in this room, separated from my opponent by this terry cloth that was hanging in the middle of the room. And I had all the other fighters around me, warming up. It was really hard to focus. I didn't have my whole team back there with me, like you do when you travel to jiu-jitsu matches where, you weight cut together, you eat together, you train together, then you go and fight together. Even though, it's you against your opponent out on the mat, you still have that team and family behind you, standing on the sidelines, and you can hear them. And during the cage match, I just felt like it was very self-centered. and I didn't have that support like I did when I went and competed in jiu-jitsu. And so that's what really turned me off from it. And that's why I decided that was the first and the last one that I would do.
You're glad you stuck with the jiu-jitsu.
I definitely am. I really enjoy it.
What are some common hurdles that women have in particular when starting jiu-jitsu?
I say the number one would be strength, because being women, this is not for all women, but this is true for me. Starting out in jiu-jitsu, I didn't have any female training partners. So I was training all with guys all the time, and I was pretty much just getting thrown around. Even if I did my knee slide pass, which I was really good at, I would just get thrown around, like not even technique. I would just get thrown. So I think developing that jiu-jitsu strength that you get from just training, that was the hardest part of it, because I had technique. My technique was perfect. I could sit there and do 1,000 flower sweeps flawlessly and do my cross grip chokes. But when it came down to the rolling, it didn't matter that I was, performing these techniques perfectly. I did not have the strength to complete them, especially rolling against guys. So that's what I would say is, the number one, not problem, but, difficulty with women training is that they just don't have the jiu-jitsu strength yet when they first start.
And it sounds like without the female training partners there, and you started competing in 2 months, so was that really the first, some of your first experiences grappling with other women just in competition?
It really was, and I'll tell you that it was a lot different. Girls move completely weird than guys. Guys are more stiff. The girls are very limber. They're very flexible. And so it was different rolling with girls in competitions. I was always getting stuck in half guard when I was a white belt and even into my blue belt. So it was something that, those techniques that you have to work on when you come back from competition, that you learn, okay, I did this wrong, or this happened. You have to kind of start putting yourself with people that will give you those reactions to girls that you're competing against. So for me, it was flexibility. So with the guys that I was going against were almost all the time bigger than I was, so they weren't that flexible. So I had to find some of the more flexible guys and train with them more, just to get that reaction and the technique that I needed for when I competed.
Yeah, that sounds like a way that you overcame that deficit in your training partners. You found some that were flexible, maybe not as flexible, but you were able to kind of see what was happening differently with somebody who's flexible versus just plain strong.
Exactly, and also, putting myself in the position where I was getting caught up a lot. So could I have passed the guard? Yes, but I left my leg, I'd let my leg hang so they would grab it into half guard so I could practice passing from that position.
So you would kind of turn the rolling session into a practice of something that's deliberate. I'm deliberately going to pass the half guard, and I'm going to put myself there, and my training partner may not even realize that, but I'm going to get more practice passing this half guard with a live opponent instead of just learning the techniques about it.
Yes, and that's what I would advise, even new students and students who have been training for a while. Put yourselves in the positions that you're having trouble with. You should never go into the gym wanting to win. You're never going to reach the goals that you have wanting to win. You should always be getting better, and also by you getting better, your training partners are going to get better. But you're going to have to put yourself into those difficult positions, the positions that you might hate getting put in, and just, like I said before, building the strength to get out of those positions, building the strength to do those techniques, or just being able to, to get better at those techniques that you might be, a little bit slack on.
Yeah, I remember early on in my jiu-jitsu time having a teammate who never got his back taken. He was always good about stopping that, and then watching him compete, and somebody took his back, and he was in a ton of trouble. He never really spent the time there in practice. So when he got there in competition, he was in deep water.
That is a lot of, that's a problem that a lot of, people who train have, is they want to always be on top. They always want to, go for the submission. And then sometimes, it happens in competition where you end up in those positions that you haven't trained. And then what are you going to do? Most of the time you're going to end up tapping because you don't know how to get out of there.
Yeah, it's better to spend that time with your training partners and your friends at your local academy than it is to travel somewhere and do a big tournament and try to figure out how to escape at that time.
Exactly. No ego in the gym. Don't be afraid to put yourself in a bad position, and don't be afraid to tap. And that's what we have trouble with a lot is, I'm a brown belt. I'm not going to let a purple, a blue, or a white belt tap me. And you have to pick your training partners. I'm not saying that you should go with everybody and train the techniques that you're bad at, because some people, do not know how to roll yet. So their balance might be off. You have to pick who you're going to train these different techniques with. So a brand new person, you might not want to be, might not want to be practicing something that, they wouldn't know, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, they might react in a way that's not helpful to them, or they might actually make the submission tighter and possibly injure themselves by turning the wrong way or something like that.
Exactly. Injure themselves or injure you. So you have to pick, who you're going to work your techniques with. Okay, I know this guy is really good at taking the back. I know this guy's really good at half guard. I know this guy's really good at close guard. So I'm going to let them put me there so I can work to get out. If I get out, that's great. I'll put myself right back there and I'll do it again. If I don't get out, okay, well, now I need to go back to the drawing board or ask my instructor, my coach, okay, I'm having this problem while I'm rolling in this position. What am I doing wrong? And then your coach, your instructor, he can come and say, okay, well, you're putting your hand in the wrong place. You're putting your leg in the wrong place. And then you can go back to training and do it all again. And that's how you're going to advance. That's how you're going to learn the fastest, and you're going to be able to kind of become a better grappler.
Yeah, that all sounds like great advice to me. Hope, I'm really interested to ask you this next question because you had so much success early on in jiu-jitsu, and you started competing at, would you say, 2 months? That's pretty quick compared to most of us. So what advice would you have for somebody who's going to do their first tournament?
Be on weight. Don't miss your weight. No, in all seriously, I think, just have fun. Have fun. Do it as a learning experience, and, use competition to be able to become better. So competitions for me, of course, I want to be on the podium. I want to be on that first place. I want to be able to get in the gold medal. But that's not what it's about. It's actually seeing what I'm doing. Is it working or is it not working? How good am I in this position? How good am I in that position? Because not all the time when you're training, you can, go 100%, because you don't want to hurt your training partners. You don't want to, do anything to hurt anybody. So you really can't give it 100% when you're training. So competitions for me were seeing everything that I've been doing in the gym, all my time that I've been putting in. So my advice is just, go out there, have fun, and, put everything that you've been learning to the test. And when after the tournament's over, you can fix whatever you need fixing, because you are going to see tournaments. You're going to see what needs work and what doesn't.
Yeah, that is great advice. And you joke a little bit about be on weight, but that if somebody hasn't had to make weight for any competition before, and suddenly, you're training for jiu-jitsu, you're learning these techniques, and suddenly there's another element that you have to do this before you even compete. You have to make weight, and that might be something that you might want to try 2 weeks ahead of time or a week before and see, okay, I want to do this weight at this time in the morning, let's do that. And kind of just see how your body works and see how you feel. Or maybe actually just lose weight beforehand. So the be on weight is kind of funny. It sounds like there's a little bit of maybe a story there, but
I've got plenty of weight cutting stories. I have some horrific stories because I never did. The wrestlers have the background of, okay, they know how to cut weight. But me, I just played, high school sports. When I came to college, I dropped all the sports and just kind of hung out for a year until I started doing jiu-jitsu. But I never had to, worry about my weight. And so the first couple of tournaments, I just did, whatever weight class I was in. And I went with some huge girls in the beginning. And I was like, I am never doing that again. So it was, a struggle to drop weight and get down to the weight class for my size, because I'm only 5'6". So I needed to be in a certain weight class where I was going against girls that were my same size. And that was a struggle in itself. So maybe for the first couple of tournaments, if you're just regular size, I would say don't even worry about the cutting weight. Just go there, for the learning experience. And then if you're wanting to become more disciplined with it and you're wanting to compete more, I would definitely suggest, getting into a weight class that's best for you.
Yeah. What advice do you have for somebody who does want to cut a little bit of weight and they're not really experienced with that?
Meal prep and do it early. Do not wait. Because one story is we were in New Jersey. It was in November, and it was the Grappler's Quest. I think it was like the World Cup Grappler's Quest or something like that. And so I needed to cut about 3 pounds, which you think 3 pounds, okay, I can do that in like an hour or so. Well, it didn't take into effect that it's November. It's freezing cold outside. It started snowing. So we're trying to make a sauna in the hotel room, in the bathroom. So we have the hot water on. We're like rolling in the bathroom, literally like drilling in the bathroom to try to cut sweat. And so after about 2 hours, I was like, I hadn't even dropped a pound. I was like, okay, well, I'll go sit in the car and try to, with my sauna suit and everything, and try to sweat it out. Sat in the car for another 30, 45 minutes, didn't drop anything. So we ended up having to find a gym that had an actual like sauna to go and sit in. And that was the last time I was like, you know what? I'm going to be on weight for the next time. I'm not going to do this, because just those 3 pounds was horrific. And I still won, which was awesome. But, I was like, that is the worst experience I ever had trying to cut weight when it's freezing cold. It's like, I will never do it again.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's adding an element of stress already onto you when you're worried about competing and you're worried about performing. You also have to, now you're worried about, okay, let's try the bathroom thing, let's try the car. Like, you're trying to figure something out, which you don't even, it would be nice to just have to worry about your competition.
Of course, not having to worry about weight. And I've done it both ways. I've done it where I didn't cut weight, and I've done it where I did cut weight. And I can say being able to not worry about what you're eating, still eating healthy, but not having to, okay, am I going to put on an ounce or two if I eat this steak or something like that? It takes a lot of stress off of it. And you can go in there to your competition and you don't have to worry. All you have to do is just focus on competing. Not having the weight cut element is amazing. I loved it. And that's when I got down to my weight. I was like, okay, I'm staying here. I'm not going to have to cut weight, and I'm going to be disciplined doing the meal prepping. So when I do start to compete again, I don't have to worry about that.
Hope, we've got an interesting little background of you as a white belt. You liked your knee cut pass, flower sweep, and your cross collar chokes, and that worked really well for you. We have a lot of people who are white belts or maybe new blue belts and making that transition from white to blue. Tell us a little bit about what you were like as a blue belt and kind of how you took maybe those techniques and changed them, or maybe abandoned them, or even developed them more as you went on to blue.
Yeah, when I became a blue belt, right after I won Worlds, I was promoted to blue. And so I started trying to open my game up more. I liked the close guards, but I wanted to be able to play open guard, play spider guard, De La Riva. So I was wanting to open up more. But I'll tell you that it was probably about almost a year worth of competing until I finally opened up my game, because it is one thing to do it in the gym, but it's another thing to do it in competition. And so, like I said, in the gym, I was training, more spider guard, more De La Riva, more sit-up guard, which I loved. But in competitions, I kind of went back to my fundamentals, which was jump to close guard. And then if the girl was like, being too crazy, I wouldn't feel confident to put her into, spider guard or sit-up guard. It's a little bit later on. So it took a couple of competitions of me just, pulling guard and kind of sitting there for a second and opening up and closing back up and going to open guard, back to close guard. But I started to open up more as a blue belt My techniques changed, I would say, in the gym drastically. In competition, it took a little bit longer. I did like the sit-up guard. I liked lapel chokes. So instead of doing my cross grip chokes, they kind of transitioned into either the person's almost like a baseball choke using the other person's gi, or the loop choke using my own gi. I really like that one a lot too, because nobody ever sees it coming. So I had the opposite, a loop choke with my lapel, or the same side loop choke with my lapel.
Cool. It's interesting to hear how it changed, but in some respects, some things stayed the same or similar, and they were able to build on each other. You've also competed very well at no gi. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe the differences in training for the gi versus no gi?
I'll tell you, I don't like no gi. I don't like no gi competitions. I like training in the gi a lot better. I did the Nagas. I always competed in no gi, and I always won. The only no gi match that I lost was Can-Am's as a blue belt, and that one I did not cut weight for, and I paid for it because the girls I went against were enormous and they just sat on top of me, and so I do regret not cutting weight for that one. But the no gi training, it's high paced. Yeah, I think it requires more conditioning, more cardio. I like it a little bit more because it's easier to get out of positions that you wouldn't normally be able to get out of when you're training in the gi. But, the no-gi, I did like competing in it. It's just like, as far as techniques-wise, I kind of stuck to the same thing, close guard, flower sweep. And then for the no-gi, you can't do the cross-grip apparently. So
yeah.
I would be either a Kimura or Americana, whichever one they would give me.
Okay. So would you do the no-gi matches because it was at the same competition and you just sign up for both, or why were you doing those?
Yeah, that's what I would do. You're going there for gi, you might as well do no-gi. And we did have a couple of training sessions during the week, no-gi. And if we knew we were having a no-gi competition, we would, add a couple more days for the no-gi. But really, I was only doing them, just to see how my no-gi game was, because we don't really compete a lot at no-gi. So, if we had a Naga competition or U.S. grappling, I would always, just do it pretty much just for fun. It wasn't really, if I won, that was great because we don't really train it, but it wasn't like what I was preparing for in the gi.
Yeah, but also getting the no-gi experience, getting the extra mat time, that extra experience competing is probably going to, in the long run, help you out on the mat no matter what you're doing.
It definitely will. As I said, you just go to have fun, but, anything, especially competing-wise, anything that you can improve on and bring back to the gym and say, hey, I need to work on this better or this better, that's always going to help you. And even if it's getting, 3 or 4 extra matches in no-gi, I think that's awesome. And that's the reason why I did them too. It's just to have that extra, competition time and to see, how my no-gi game was compared to my gi.
Well, cool. Hope, I'd like to kind of switch gears a little bit here. You mentioned that you teach the kids and the teens classes. Could you maybe just describe how those are set up differently than the adults class?
The kids and teens classes, we run pretty much like the adult classes. We're not going to have, some of the higher level techniques for the kids, but we teach the kids pretty much just like the adults. They learn, the fundamentals, close guard, flower sweep, waiter sweep, leg drag passes, knee slide passes, all the submission as well. I think the kids are sometimes a little bit easier to teach than the adults because they don't have that mentality yet to question anything. So you have the adults who think too much about the techniques, whereas the kids, they will just do it because they're being told to do it. So the kids are a little bit easier to teach than the adults sometimes, but basically the techniques are the same.
Do you have any tips or advice for keeping the kids, keeping their attention?
What we do is we have jiu-jitsu related activities in between when we first started. Now the kids they know the program, they know what they're supposed to be doing. So even the 5 and 6 year olds, they don't need the games anymore. So when we first started, we would have, the younger kids separated from the older kids, and they would do their warm-ups, which is like shrimping, bear crawls, all the stuff that you need to strengthen your jiu-jitsu game. And then they would go straight to techniques. So we'd be practicing, like the knee slide pass. We'd be practicing the leg drive pass. So we'd do maybe, 10 reps of that with the kids. And then we'd go and do crab tag, which is, you're in the crab walk position and you have to tag, the other players with your feet. So you're still working on those jiu-jitsu strengths that you need, and then bring them back. So you with the kids, you really have to functionate the games for jiu-jitsu in between the training, and then they kind of grow out of it. So once they start getting into the program, they've been there for a little while, they don't rely on those games whereas they did before. So now the kids that we have, they are like, okay, I want to drill. Well, I need to practice this. So they kind of get out of that mentality, which we still play games with them every once in a while, but they're always jiu-jitsu related. So we're not playing, dodgeball in the middle of the jiu-jitsu room or anything like that. It's always jiu-jitsu related, and always, being positive, encouraging the kids all the time, so they don't feel that, you're just criticizing them on every little detail, because they are going to get it wrong. They do need help, and, especially the kids that are competing, and you might have a little bit more tendency to critique because you want them to do so well.
Yeah, it sounds like at first the group of kids kind of needed some activities, those games to play, but now the team is not really needing that. And even with a new kid coming in, they're looking at their teammates and saying, okay, now we do this, and everyone's paying attention, I better pay attention. And so it's more like the team doesn't need to play those games versus at the beginning when everyone kind of needed to change it up a little bit. Would you agree to that?
I do agree completely. So, all the kids we teach, lead by example. So, the kids that are coming up in the program, when we have a new kid, it's easy for them, to fall in line with all the other kids because they do set such a good example.
That helps out a ton, I bet. Hope, you train a lot, and you've got like a great system of off the mat time and meal prep and training, and then you get into the classroom several times or a couple times a day. But not everybody can do that. What advice do you have for somebody who's just able to train maybe 1 to 3 times a week?
If you're only able to train that much, I think that's great. Like I said before, not everybody is going to be able to train or be in the gym as much as, other people. And that's fine. You don't have to. I think it just comes down to, being honest with yourself and saying, okay, what do I want to achieve? And if I'm going to come in there and I can only come 1 to 3 times a week, what can I do to make my training session the most productive? So that for me would be going in there, not goofing off, listening to my instructor, actually doing what my instructor is telling me to do, doing all the techniques, maybe even staying after and asking if you have questions. I always encourage everyone to ask questions because that's how you're going to learn. And then apply what you're drilling and what you're learning in the rolling session. So if you're just coming there and you're just interested in getting to the rolling session, you're not really focused on the technique, you're not going to improve, and you're just really wasting your time. So you need to apply, even if you don't like the moves like we talked before, finding techniques that work for you and that you enjoy and that you can advance in. Use those techniques that you're learning in the rolling session so you can improve. Always ask questions, and then just use your time, the time that you have, even if it is once a week. You can still learn a lot in that 1 to 2 hour session if that's what you can make.
Yeah, and I always encourage people to do that. Try the moves you learned today. For me, my memory is not the best, so if I learn 2 or 3 moves today, I'll probably forget them by next week. But if I could actually do a couple of those techniques or just one of them on a live opponent, I am a lot more likely to remember that technique. And then even if I don't use it in my game, I'll recognize it's going to happen to me sometime a little bit ahead of time versus a total, I'd never seen that technique before because I forgot it. Well, I'm less likely to forget. So that's great. And you also mentioned mentioned ask questions. That's something that a lot of people don't do. We come in and we train and we roll and we struggle, but really asking questions about your specific game is something that is one great way to take advantage of such a knowledgeable instructor that you could have, and versus going online and just looking at different techniques. Say, I have a problem with this happening in my game. You can't do that really anywhere online, and your instructor is usually more than capable of helping you out with that. And a lot of times we just don't ask the questions that would help us out.
That is true. And if you're going online, which I do not recommend, because you're not getting the full technique when you go online and look up, these moves. You're not getting the fundamentals of that specific technique, and you're also missing a lot because I've watched instructional DVDs, and I'm not going to say any names, but they leave out so many little details that make a difference for the move. And then it goes even further than that. Okay, this person's extremely flexible. They're able to pull this technique off. There's no way I'd be able to do that. So always ask questions. And if it should be, now I'm not saying to go in there and ask a question that's completely unrelated to what you just learned. Ask questions about the techniques that you have been learning and then what you learned, that evening, for example. And if you're asking those type of questions, then your instructor is going to be able to help you, because if they're teaching that technique, then they know all the little details around it. So that's the person that you should be, asking, not going online to YouTube at all.
Yeah, and I always appreciate it when somebody comes up and they say, hey, I've been trying this thing that we worked on 3 weeks ago, and it's coming okay, but I have this problem. Well, in my head, I'm excited. They've been doing this for 3 weeks. They're actually putting time and effort into it, and they just have a little glitch. I'm happy. That's a great opportunity to fix that little problem that they have and help them with that.
Yes, and then you see the improvement because they have been working on that technique for that long. And then you are going to run into those problems because, your training partners are getting better. You're getting better. So every time, your training partner stops you with a counter, then you go and ask another question. And so you get the reaction to that counter. So then that makes your training partner go to the instructor and say, okay, well, hey, they did this reaction. What do I do now? So it's always this system where everyone's advancing, at the same rate.
Yeah, and hopefully, if you do decide to go compete, you won't run into nearly as many counters because they don't know what you're trying to do when you're doing it, and your training partners, you've helped train them to train you to really sharpen your game.
Yes.
Hope, I know you have a couple of sponsors. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Yes, I have my local sponsor here is Max Muscle. And Artie Quaranta was working with me for a long time, and he just passed it off to a new owner, but he still does, all the work there. He's worked with me for the 6, almost 7 years that I've been competing and training. And then Helen Shelby out in Las Vegas, Nevada, is the owner of Shiruto Sports Bras, and she is also my sponsor.
Do you have any websites or contact information that we can go look at those at?
Max Muscle ILM is the local sports nutritionist place here, and they specialize only in sports nutrition. So, like I said, already worked with me for a long time. They work with, specific athletes, top-level athletes. They're not just your typical, GNC or Walmart type brand. And they actually, work with these high-level athletes, and they know how you're training. They take the time to get to know you. And I absolutely love Max Muscle. They're great. They have great products, and they've worked with me for a long time. Helen is out in Las Vegas. I know her Instagram is Straight Cheer, but I'm not sure about a website for her yet. But I could probably give that to you.
Okay.
When I find that out.
Okay, that would be cool. I hope I've had a great time getting to know you and learn from you, and it was an interesting conversation. How could somebody get a hold of you or even train with you?
I am located in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I am, always at the gym if you want to stop by. We always welcome, outside students, any affiliations, all levels to come and train with us here in Wilmington. We have our contact page on our website, which is alliancebjjnc.com. And you can always, contact us on the contact page and say you're coming over, and you're always welcome.
All right. Well, thank you for that. And it's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
I would like to thank Hope Uzcategui one more time for jumping on here with us, sharing some of her story, giving us advice. I got really interested in listening to her white belt story, winning worlds. And what does that mean to be a white belt world champion? Well, it really means that she had an accelerated learning curve that was beyond her peers. I mean, that's as simple as that is. She wasn't the best grappler in the world. She was the best at it in the group of people who are pretty new at it. And that's something to look at. What did she do? What was her game plan? Her game plan was pretty simple. She had a contingency plan, so she had ways to get back into her game plan if she got out of it. And it was just nice of her to share that story with us. And I think it'd be interesting to hear other people with similar early successes like that and see what they've come up with. So we'll be hopefully bringing you something like that in the future. But I just very interested in Hope's story, and I'm glad she gave us the time. And it was good to hear from her.
Yep, we really appreciate it, and thank you so much, Hope.
Gary, there are a number of easy ways to get in touch with the BJJ Brick podcast crew. Probably the easiest way is Facebook. Go like our page and check us out there. And if you have a question or want a message there, that's great. Or you could always send us a message at our email, bjjbrick@gmail.com. Also have a YouTube channel. That's going pretty good. We're getting some videos up there. And just basically wherever your social media is, we'll try to be there. Gary, there's a few that we don't do, but we'll leave those alone.
Yeah. Hey, and I know we had one last week and a couple other times, but we're requesting stories for a segment we call Matt Tales.
Oh, and Gary.
This is just, you can just send us a little story at bjjbrick@gmail.com or put it on our Facebook page, BJJ Brick. But it's just a crazy story about some awkward or strange event that happened in your jiu-jitsu career. It doesn't have to be to you. It could have been to a teammate. We've had, one where a newcomer was getting ready to go to his first seminar ever, and he talked to his boss, and his boss was going to let him off a little bit early. He went to the bathroom to change, to get ready to go to the seminar, and got locked in the bathroom for a couple hours. The lock fell off and everything, and he ended up missing the seminar. We had another one where a guy, first time into a gym, starts rolling with a very attractive female grappler and ends up having a messy time, had some bowel issues. And so we've had some crazy ones. And if you have anything like that or know anything like that, definitely send us a message. Let us know about it, and we can put it on the show.
I trust that everybody last week that had not seen the Back to School movie has seen it by now, and now we can incorporate the Triple Lindy into our grappling terminology, Gary.
Yeah. Hey, and speaking of this, what even might work for this, and I know it's probably happened before, or you guys might have been into it, even dojo storms. Some guy comes into your
that'd be cool.
dojo, into your school, and it goes backwards. That would definitely be a good mat tail.
There we go. Lots of options for the mat tails, and it's just kind of fun to get one come into the email. It's like, what in the world happened over here? You're just
reading it and just start laughing the whole time you're reading it, and you're like, unbelievable.
Yep, and we'll put it together and put some music to it, and we'll share it with everybody. So, and we've kept them anonymous, which has been nice. So you could share kind of a little more embarrassing thing, but you don't get any credit for it. It's just out there for you to enjoy with everybody else.
Yeah, and we'll definitely keep it anonymous. Like I know the guy who had the messy time with the female grappler, he actually put at the end, he's like, hey, please don't use my name because, I know some people that listen to this show. But, hey, we're not going to use your name anyhow, so don't ever worry about that. It's all anonymous.
Absolutely. Speaking of another thing you don't get credit for, our most interesting grappler segment is we're going to be recording some more of these. Get some fresh ones out there for everybody. And if you want to send some ideas to us about the world's most interesting grappler, send them to bjjbrick@gmail.com. I'm collecting these into a big pile. We'll get them all recorded and engineered and ready for the audio listening of the audience. But yet again, we're going to give everybody credit. We're just going to put them in a big pile and read them off, and you get the joy of hearing your most interesting grappler fact be aired. But that's about it. So thank you for those who have contributed so far. We've gotten several in. And
I was laughing.
Good.
Yeah, I was laughing reading them the other day. Somebody was saying a guy won a high-level tournament without his gi being all patched. I thought that was pretty funny. And a guy won shrimp so hard he opened a Red Lobster. So our listeners have been sending in some pretty good ones.
Yep. They are good to us, Gary, and we do appreciate them fully. And speaking of the things that are good to us, Gary's audiobook has always been good to us. I've gotten countless, as in uncountable, emails.
Uncountable means zero.
Yeah, that's 0 emails about how your audiobooks have changed lives, Gary, and really helped people out. If you're new to the show, this is the time of the show where we will throw Gary
under the bus.
Under the bus. No, Gary, I'm not gonna
back over me again. Throw me under the bus, drag me behind the bus.
Gary, I'm not gonna ever stab you in the back, but I will drive that bus right over you.
You will. You have.
So I always like to surprise Gary with an audiobook title and watch him fill out the details of what this audiobook will be. He has no idea what this is going to be. And Gary, your audiobook this week is called Leverage. How I have leveraged my awkwardness to get submissions. And I don't know what kind of awkwardness you're thinking about, but Gary, we all have awkward things that go to us. And I don't know how any of my awkwardness could ever give me a submission. They just kind of just lead me down the wrong path oftentimes. But I'm interested to know how your awkwardness has actually taps people out.
Well, the thing, this works great for me. One look at me, and you'll know I'm definitely awkward. Weird, strange, unnormal, I guess you could say. And I do use that to my advantage. A lot of times I'll go up to my first roll, somebody I've never rolled with before, and introduce myself, and right off the bat, they can tell how awkward and, hey, this guy's a little strange. I better, take it easy on this guy. And that's what we're talking about in chapter 1, how to use your awkwardness. And then, you've heard me say this numerous times before, but I'm going to use my awkwardness, get the guy at ease. We're going to slap hands, get ready to roll. The person at ease, he's going to take care of me because I'm the awkward, strange guy. And then I'm going to come at him like a wounded cougar. You've heard me say that numerous times. And what it does is it leads to an easy win for me. I'm going to get you sleeping, get you feel sorry for me. Hey, this guy's strange. And then I'm just going to jump out of the box with everything I got. So it's just a way to, and we're going to talk about how to use that not only on the mat, but in real life. I can go to a restaurant and get people to buy me lunch. I can go walking and stand on the corner waiting for the light to change, and people hand me money. Happens all the time.
That's more because of your clothing choice, Gary, I think, than anything else.
Oh, okay. But, it works great. Like, we're going to, chapter 1's going to be on the mat. Chapter 2 is going to be, how to get free food. Chapter 3 is going to be how to just stand at the corner and make enough money to buy a $100,000 house. And, and so it's not going to just help you on the mat. It's going to help you off the mat. And it's also going to, we're going to have a chapter on, how to use it to increase your social life. And, you'll get a lot of the women feeling sorry for you. And next thing you know, they'll start hanging out with you.
There you go. Hey, man, sweet pity. Where would my love life be without some pity, man? That's my A game back in the day.
Yep. I never had an A game.
The sympathy date. There we go.
Yep. And, what it's all about. I don't know if you've seen some of these movies. Darn, I can't think of the name of the movie, but with Patrick Dempsey, where he's a nerdy high school guy, and he got all the popular girl to like him.
Napoleon Dynamite.
What was that?
Was it Napoleon Dynamite, Gary?
No. That's a great movie. I actually watched it last night. But the thing is, you're going to learn some of the tricks of the trade. Like, once these women friend you, what you do is you just start taking pictures, selfies with them, post them on your Facebook page, post them on your Twitter, your Instagram. Pretty soon, you're the most popular guy in school. even though you're awkward, strange, and weird. So we're going to learn a lot that's going to help you in your life, on and off the mat.
Yeah. You know what's kind of funny? We're talking about awkwardness or whatever. Being awkward, junior high, high school is like it's a negative thing, typically speaking. But as adults, it's like I like people who are awkward. They're more interesting to be around. I like the quirky people and people who are like characters. And like, this guy could be on a TV show. He's so weird. So, Gary, maybe they'll start up a TV show with you if you just be a little more awkward.
Yeah, that's the one thing I've noticed about jiu-jitsu. There's a lot of awkward people in jiu-jitsu, and I think maybe that's why I fit in so well. And, it's a good group of guys, but a good group of awkward people.
There we go. Gary, I'm looking forward to the book. When is the most awkward time for it to come out? Valentine's Day?
Well, this thing's never going to come out, so don't even worry about it.
Well, this is awkward. Shut me down like that.
Well, I figured you'd be used to that, Mr. No A Game.
There we go. I don't need the A game anymore. Oh, man. Anyway, that's I'm looking forward to your progress in this book. Although it will never come out, your awkward struggle is always motivating to me as you struggle through your book.
Well, like you said, it's an awkward struggle. It's a struggle. If it was easy, it wouldn't be fun, and it wouldn't be awkward. So let's be awkward.
Hey, you want to do something awkward? Tell a friend about the BJJ podcast and tell them why you like it. You might share with them one of the mat tales. You might tell them who was being interviewed this week or any other week that you think your friend is going to be interested in. Have that awkward conversation of inviting them to the show and checking it out. And you might have just made a new better friend or a listener of the show that they can now enjoy with you and learn jiu-jitsu with all of us together. So we appreciate it when you tell a training partner, a friend, you have that awkward conversation, tell them about the podcast. We appreciate that.
We appreciate it. #awkward. Hey, we're in the middle of the United States. Wichita, Kansas is where we're at. So if you happen to be traveling through taking a vacation to sunny, hot, and dry Wichita, definitely let us know. Send us a line, bjjbrick@gmail.com. Hit us up on our Facebook page, and we'd love to get some awkward time on the mat.
Not just awkward time, but sweaty time. Stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, if you think about a lever, it's a long stick basically that you grab and you'll turn something either at the base or beyond the base. Whether if it's like a lever attached to something, you probably rotate it right. I don't. Okay, I'm getting a little bit too. Maybe try that, Gary, because that was terrible. If you think about a lever, it is something that helps you get leverage. And if, damn it, Gary, I'm tanking. Let me read a little bit here. Okay, let me try this the third time, and if it fails, I don't know what I'm going to do. I got to get up and do some jumping jacks.